Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to cross the Øresund once again, and we're going to go back to Sjælland in Denmark and revisit a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, a good few different styles, but I think it is definitely fair to say that this brewery are still best known for their different New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have tried from them before, albeit the exact sub-style I believe is one that I've not tried from them in the past, but it's a sub-style that I very much enjoy. This beer is a very new release, it's had very good write-ups, so I have to say I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us, and it is a bit different compared to what we've had from them in the past actually. So yeah, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to Herlev in the northwest of Copenhagen, the Danish capital on Sjælland, and we're going to have a look at another beer then from the wonderful Gamma Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Obsequious. It comes in at 11.5% ABV, and they're describing this one as a bourbon barrel-aged Imperial Stout with coffee. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. From what I understand, this beer has been aged in bourbon barrels for 14 months. The coffee used in it comes from the Prologue Cafe in Copenhagen, which is quite a well-known coffee roastery. And yeah, this is a one-off release. It's released very recently, December of 2022, and when I saw this one I thought, you know, we have to have a go at this. But big shout out of course to Jessica and Nicolina at Beer Hive and Amar in Copenhagen. They supply most of my Danish beers that I review here on the channel, and this is one that they kept aside for me. I saw this one on the Instagram and thought, you know, we have to have one of these. But yeah, definitely looking forward to this. Let's crack on and see what we go. Make sure you check out the link to the Beer Hive and Amar in the video description below though. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Gamma Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is hugely appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture. Just go to the search bar, put your local area in, and if I've reviewed beers from that area, they should pop up. Otherwise, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. This one will be in the Danish playlist, along with a number of other things, and we're constantly adding to that playlist because I love my Danish beers and I live very close to Denmark, of course. But yeah, let's crack on then, and we'll chat a little bit about Gamma Brewing Company before we try this bad boy. So Gamma Brewing Company then, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Herlev in northwestern Copenhagen, and the company was founded back in 2015 by 4 friends who were also bartenders in the various beer bars around the city. But they often used to talk about how it would one day be cool to have their own brewery, but little did they know it was actually very close to their grasp. So they took in another co-owner in the early days, and so the team at the brewery is currently Jakob, Anders, Jesper, Coy and Nick, and they all had a little bit of homebrewing experience, and 2 of them had also worked in Ulsnegern in Copenhagen, who went on to purchase the former Stronzo brewery in Gørløse, which later became Øl Kollektivet. But one of the co-owners in Gamma Brewing is also a co-owner of the May og Ulsnegern bar in Aarhus. And yeah, Gamma have just kind of been building over the last few years. But apparently they were invited to join Øl Kollektivet, and they got a good deal on a 20 hectolitre tank, and they started the brewery without any experience of having run their own company. But needless to say, it went very well for them, and they expanded twice during their stay at Øl Kollektivet, and at maximum they were producing around 500 hectolitres per year. There, so yeah, about 500,000 litres of beer per year, to translate that into kind of normal measurements, if you like. But Øl Kollektivet, had been home to Ulsnegern, Gamma Brewing and Dry and Bitter for the most part, but Ulsnegern also brewed the Bad Seed beers under contract before they got their own brewery up by Aalborg. But Ghost Brewing and Rooster used to brew at this facility, but they have since moved on. Ghost Brewing, of course, now brew at Amar Brewing in the south of Copenhagen. Ulsnegern have their own facility just a little bit further away from Gørløse, so it is now Dry and Bitter who are brewing mainly at what was once Eau Collectivit. But in July of 2020, Gamma Brewing announced that they would move to a new brewery in Herlev, and they worked on building this up over the next few months. So in February of 2021, they produced their last beers in Gurlosa before they moved to their new site in Herlev, and the new beers from this site were released in March, actually. And over the last kind of year or so, they've just been developing new recipes, getting their beers out there a little bit more, and as of December 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 220 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. But like I said to you, Gamma Brewing Company are best known for their different kinds of New England hazy IPAs. Every so often you will see like a black IPA or a West Coast IPA from them, but most definitely best known for their different kind of New England hazies. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Gamma Brewing for the moment. One of the best known Danish craft breweries these days, outside of the likes of Mikkeller, Evil Twin, Amager Bryghus and Totul, of course. But yeah, Gamma Brewing have been doing some really, really good stuff over the years, and trying, pardon me, something new from them like this is actually quite exciting. But yeah, if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a little look at this beer itself. I think we've covered enough in the history section of the video. But as you can see, this beer is a little bit different in appearance from what we've seen from Gamma Brewing in the past. This is a half-litre bottle actually. So this one cost me 100 Danish kroner, which I think translates to about 150 Swedish. So that is about 15 euros, somewhere in the region of like £13 sterling and maybe about $16 or $17 American. So this beer was a little bit more expensive, but it was one of these ones where I was just like, you know, fuck it, why not? But you can see lovely kind of orange top on this one. It looks very, very good. But yeah, I think it is very nice. It says on the side here, Imperial Stout brewed with muscovado sugar, artisanal coffee, and aged in bourbon barrels for 14 months. But yeah, I think this one, it says that the stout contains oats, so I'm expecting quite a creamy stout with the coffee on top of it. This should be pretty damn nice. Like we said, 11.5% ABV, very recent release. You could obviously age this beer a bit more if you wanted to, but yeah, I was just very curious to try this one and see what it was all about. So we'll see if we can get this guy open. I'm not overly hopeful. We might actually have to kind of pause the video with this one and see, but yeah, see, yeah, no, I think we are going to have to pause the video here and see if we can get this. So I'll catch you guys in just a second. Alright, I think I might have got a gap good enough to get in and get this open. We'll just need to see. Yeah, nearly. Nah. This guy just does not want to open. It really doesn't. One of the problems with wax. There we go. One of the problems with wax caps. There we are though. Had to use a pizza cutter and a knife, quite a big knife to open this guy. But there we are. Yeah, that was an absolute bastard actually. So yeah, just a plain bottle cap on this. I don't think we need to look at that. But yeah, let's get some of this guy out into the glass and see what we have. This should be really interesting. If memory serves me correctly, this is the first barrel-aged beer that I've had from Gamma Brewing. And now that they have their own kind of facility, I think that's one of the really good things, is that they have space to do things like this, because that's something that Gamma never really kind of touched upon before, actually. So yeah, I think we've poured maybe about 2/3 of the beer into the glass with this one. So that allows us to take a proper look, pardon me, at it, and we'll see how we go. So first and foremost, you can see the head on this beer. It's poured to be a lovely kind of 3/4 finger frothy, I would say kind of fawn coloured head. I mean, just look at that. That looks very, very nice actually. You can see lots of very nice small bubbles, lovely kind of foaminess to it. 11.5% ABV. I have to admit, I'm very curious to see how long that head can last for. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head. But like I say, I think that head will fade away to be a nice kind of thinner foamy layer a bit later on. But in terms of the colour of this beer, it does look, I have to say, in terms of the colour of this beer, it does look very, very nice. Yeah, so lovely dark sort of ebony rosewood colour to it. If you shine the light through it, you can see there's a little bit of a kind of chestnutty edge to it. But yeah, not too much in the way of light getting through this one. Most of the haze that you'll get in this beer, most of the kind of, pardon me, opacity that this beer has will be due to the kind of to the oats in the beer. This one doesn't have wheat in it, if I remember correctly. No, it doesn't have wheat. But yeah, most of the colour in this one will, or most of the haze in this beer will be due to the presence of the oats. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging you do or adjuncts that you put in can affect the colour of it as well. And in this case, I think the barrel aging is very unlikely to affect the colour. I think the coffee will potentially do a little bit of that though. But as you can see, this beer is pretty much black as night. You're not going to get darker than that, I have to say. But yeah, appearance wise, in terms of what you'd expect from an Imperial coffee stout, nothing particularly surprising about this one. So yeah, I think we should take a wee look at the aroma of this beer and see what we have. Just really curious about this one. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, in terms of what you'd expect from a bourbon barrel aged Imperial coffee stout, this one delivers very, very nicely. Yeah, first impression is you can smell a little bit of the bourbon spirit in there, but this beer has a really bright, aromatic coffee thing going on with it, which is just lovely. As I've mentioned to you in various videos before, one of my favourite adjuncts that you can put in craft beer, particularly in stouts, are coffee beans. You know, coffee beans are like hops. If you grow them in different parts of the world, you've got different water profiles, different soil profiles, so you get all these different elements to them. Sometimes they can be very aromatic, sometimes they can be very fruity, sometimes they can even be quite citrusy. They've got different levels of kind of earthiness and floral character to them as well. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is very, very nice. But for me, this is absolutely great. Love this one. You know, the other thing with coffee you need to consider is the mazzle, the metres above sea level at which the coffee is grown. That can play a great role in that can definitely play a great role in determining, you know, how the flavour of your coffee is going to be. But yeah, this one, I got a feeling that this is going to be one of these beers where it's very kind of straight shooting, but it's just really, really well done. But the aroma, this one, is absolutely beautiful. So let's try and break this down for you and just describe it a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, you can absolutely smell a little bit of that kind of bourbon barrel in there. You get the nice kind of smooth American oak. There's a little bit of vanilla in there. You know, you can smell that the American oak for me has always been a little bit smoother than the European oak, right enough. So definitely you can smell that American oak in there, a little touch of vanilla, and also a little bit of the bourbon spirit. But above that, you start to get that roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust. So some of that going on, roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust. Above that, you've got this sort of cakey aroma. It's almost like, you know, Swedish kladdkaka, a chocolate cake, or like a really, you know, thick chocolate brownie. It's kind of like that. So there's definitely some of that going on in here. And within that, you've got these kind of red, fruity, almost phenolic, medicinal type qualities. So you can smell a lot of that in this beer. So this chocolate, kladdkaka cakey sort of thing, some phenolic, medicinal type qualities in there. But then you've also got chocolate as well. So for me, there's a mix between at the front to further forward on the nose. You've got like a sort of, pardon me, 50% cocoa chocolate going on. Like a more milky chocolate, and you can absolutely smell some vanilla in there. But then further back on the nose, you've got like an 80-90% cocoa chocolate. So I do quite like how I do really like how that goes together as well. yeah, the aroma in this beer on the chocolatey side of things is quite interesting. The coffee beans, of course, come out further back on the nose, so we'll talk about those in a minute. But I will say on this one, there is definitely a little bit of brown sugar to the beer, but it's not majorly prominent. I'm getting a few kind of nutty elements out of this beer as well. But on the brown sugary side of things, there's a little bit of that kind of leathery brown sugar. And I mean, again, for me, when you get these leathery notes, that's usually that is usually an indicator of a slightly longer wort boil. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this beer has had a little bit of that. So you've got these lovely leathery brown sugars. There's some sweet treacle molasses in there. I don't get too much in the way of a brighter caramel out of this one, but you can get it in the top of the nose. So there's bright caramel, treacle molasses, and these more kind of leathery type things coming out of it. But yeah, the whole, pardon me, still got this dry throat. The whole vibe of the malty side of this beer for me is really quite interesting. It comes across like an old school Russian Imperial Stout, but quite a smooth one. The thing you have to remember with these beers, with these ones, when they're bourbon, when they're barrel aged of any description, you're going to sacrifice a bit of the mouthfeel to give you these more infused flavours and aromas, and we are going to notice that with this one. But we should talk about the coffee bean aromas in this one, because we haven't really covered that yet. So the coffee beans for me, like I said in the beginning, the coffee beans you get in this one are very, very aromatic. You've got this really bright aromaticity coming out of them, and they've got this kind of phenolic, red fruity character, like, you know, black currants, blackberries, maybe kind of prunes and plums and stuff like that. Jeez, that is bad. But you've also got a lovely little bit of earthiness and things in there as well. So you get that nice kind of roasty, dry earthiness out of the coffee. But as I say, very floral and aromatic. There's a wee bit of citrusy character in there. But yeah, the coffee beans for me are very much red fruity. It didn't say exactly what type of coffee bean they were. It just mentioned that it was coffee from the Prologue Cafe in Copenhagen, who are obviously very well respected. But yeah, I think that covers the malty side of the malty and adjuncty and barrel side of the aroma in this beer. But yeah, it is quite, the more I smell this, it gets more cakey and sort of phenolic, if you like. But let's look at the hoppy side of things. So yeah, for me, there's a good little bit of the other thing as well is you have to remember this is bourbon barrel aged. Imperial Stouts are not the most hop forward style of beer. So yeah, these notes take a bit of a back seat, but there's a nice little bit of earthiness in there. There's a good little bit of herbal character as well. But yeah, there's a good little bit of floral character and some grassiness, but the overall green component of this beer is actually quite wet. I have to say that, it really is quite wet in this one. But yeah, the green component it's kind of smooth, but at the same time quite wet. But on the fruity side of things, this beer really is quite interesting. I'm getting a lot of, there is a bit of sharp raisin in there, but I'm also getting some juicy plum. And all of this sits on top of like this kind of, it all sits on top of this kind of chocolate brownie, muffiny type dryness actually. So yeah, as I say, a bit of raisin, a bit of plum, the kind of chocolate brownie sort of thing underneath. But then you've also got some juicy figs, you've got black currants in there, a little bit of blackberry. It's not madly tart right enough, but the fruity notes are very kind of bright, I would say. But overall, the aroma of this beer is really quite interesting. It's kind of, it's one of these beers that's like really straight shooting. In a sense, it reminds me of the big bourbon barrel aged stout, I think it was called, from Stigberry. It's the one with the lion on it. It's kind of like that. This beer doesn't do anything that is unexpected, but I've got a feeling it's going to be one of these ones that's just really, really nicely done. So yeah, as I always say, take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is just about time that we have a taste of this and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Obsequious, which of course means to be, you know, to serve someone with vigour, if you like, to serve someone with a great amount of care and detail. So yeah, the Obsequious Imperial Stout, 11.5% ABV, aged in bourbon barrels for 14 months with coffee from the Prologue Cafe in Copenhagen. Let's just have a taste of this and see what it's all about. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's really, really nice. Yeah. Yeah, this beer is kind of what I suspected it would be. It's one of these ones that's, you know, doesn't do anything surprising, but it's just really, really nicely done. So it gets a big, big thumbs up from me. Beautiful, beautiful beer, I have to say. But yeah, very straight shooting, and that's the first thing you get out of this one. It's a big sort of smooth and silky Imperial coffee stout, this one. The bourbon barrel, I think, you get the impression from this beer that the coffee is going to be really prominent, but this is really a big more kind of silky, smooth, and very subtle stout, actually. So, yeah, I think what you experience from the aroma from this beer is quite different from what you actually get in the taste, but it's still beautiful, beautiful beer. So, big thumbs up to Gamma Brewing with this one. Let's break this down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. Yeah, that really is good. So, middle third of your palate then. Yeah, the middle third of your palate, you've got a lovely, kind of smooth, woody backbone to this one. This is what you expect from a bourbon barrel aged Imperial Stout. So yeah, you get this lovely, smooth, woody character there. On top of that, or further forward toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you get, there's a little touch of vanilla in there, and there's a few little nutty elements, but you can feel on top of the wood, there's just a layer of the kind of bourbon spirit coming out, which I really do like as well. So yeah, you can feel that, and in fairness, that does linger into the aftertaste, which I think is really, really nice. You do get more and more bourbon out of this beer the more that you drink of it. But above that kind of bourbon layer, you can feel that roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust coming out of the beer, which sits there. So yeah, roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust. On top of that, on top of that, you get a sort of rye bready, like, you know, dense rye bready type flavour. And then above that, you get this sort of, you know, chocolate brownie, kladkake type note to the beer. So yeah, it's a very layered affair, this beer, definitely. So yeah, wood, the bourbon spirit, the bread crust, the kind of rye bread, then the kind of dense, cakey brownie sort of note in this one. But yeah, I like how that goes together. So yeah, above the kind of, above the sort of kladkake brownie sort of layer, you start to get the brown sugary notes out of this one. And the brown sugary notes are actually a lot less prominent in this beer than I thought they were going to be. But what you will notice is that within the kind of cakey layer, toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you start to get a more kind of nutty, you do start to get more of the kind of nutty type quality out of this one. But on top of that, there is the brown sugary element there. So you can feel that in the middle of your palate, there is a little circle with this beer. And the brown sugars, as I say, they really take a back seat to everything else. This is, for me, this is really quite a cakey and bready leaning Imperial Stout with the coffee sitting in the background. But yeah, in the middle of your palate, you've got this kind of circle sitting there, which I think is good. You can feel the base of that kind of brown sugary layer, because you know this brown sugary note is quite qualified, so it is quite quantifiable, but the base of that sugary layer, you can feel there's a nice little bit of roasty toasty character in there. In the dead centre of your palate, you've got a lovely sweet caramelly note. As you move further out from that, it gets a little bit more treacle and molasses like, and then yeah, you've got that toasty brown sugary layer underneath. But on top of that, you have a little bit of a more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character this one. So the brown sugars actually take a little bit of time to come out of this one, but yeah, toasty brown sugar, not too roasted if that makes sense, just a little bit toasty and still quite sweet. So sweet caramel, a little bit of treacle molasses, roasty toastiness and a wee bit of biscuit. You can feel that all sitting on top of the kind of cakey type note out of the beer. So yeah, the way this beer goes together I think is really, really nice. So yeah, the way this beer goes together in that middle third of the palate is really quite well done. So, pardon me, let's go on to the other parts of the flavour with this beer then. So, back third of the palate and the kind of middle area. So the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of that sort of bready, cakey build up there. So, you do get that coming out of it. So it's kind of like a sort of clam cookie muffin, chocolate muffin type thing. So there's a lot of that going on in this one. But yeah, you've got the coffee beans kind of sitting within that. And the coffee bean, like I said, there's a good little bit of aromaticity to the coffee bean, but there's a little bit of earthiness as well. And you've got these lovely red fruity sort of notes coming out of this one. So there's a bit of plummy character. There's a little bit of pruny, like more dry pruny character in there, and also a wee bit of raisin and fig as well. So the coffee bean's giving you a good little bit of fruit, but it's also quite aromatic and it's got a wee bit of a smooth roasty character to it as well. So yeah, the way that the beer goes together in that sense is really quite nice. Pardon me. So on the back third of the palate though, you can feel the base of the beer. You've got that lovely kind of dry, woody character once again. Remember the wood will be a little bit drier on the back third of the palate. Sweeter flavours come out further forward in the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So yeah, you've got the drier woody notes there. You've got a little bit of the bourbon, the kind of bourbon sugar layer. You can feel you've got more of a kind of rye bready layer. You can feel that that's a little bit taller and more airy. Then you've got like this kind of, it's more like a chocolate muffin type layer on the back third of the palate as well. And then above that, you've got these more airy, yeasty notes. So it's like a it's like a black bread but with a wee bit of honeycomb or something in it. And you can really feel that back third of your palate, the flavour is taller and more airy. Then you come further forward into the middle third of the palate and it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that the malty, yeasty and barrel side of this beer goes together, I think, is very, very nice, this one. I like that, yeah, in particular I like the sort of chocolate muffiny flavours that you get out of this beer on the back third of the palate. But yeah, let's go to the hoppy side of things then. So as I said, this beer is a bourbon barrel aged Imperial Stout. Imperial Stouts are not the most hop forward style of beer. When it's bourbon barrel aged, it's going to be even less so. But yeah, back corner of the palate, you have this nice little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward, it's got a little touch of herbal quality, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, you do get a little touch of floral note out of this one. But yeah, not much in the way of a kind of big green component coming out of the beer. So yeah, a little bit of kind of floral aromaticity there around the front curve of the palate, a little bit of a remnant of grassiness, but overall the green component is very smooth. Again, most of the hops will have dropped out of this beer over the course of its 14-month barrel aging. We need to bear this in mind. So yeah, green component for me is very smooth. It shows you the subtleties that you want but it doesn't take over the beer, if you like. It's not an overly bitter Imperial Stout, this one, from the hoppy perspective. But let's look at the front third of your palate and that kind of side of things. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Yeah, there's a little bit of a kind of bread, you get a little bit of that kind of chocolate muffiny, Cladcock sort of build up there. So I like how that goes together. So yeah, a little bit of a Cladcock chocolate muffiny type thing, but the base of the front third of your palate, you get a bit of the woodiness, you get a bit of the bourbon spirit, but then yeah, you get this sort of rye bready Cladcock sort of thing there. And above that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that. So the fruity side of things, you've got a little bit of raisin in there, although that takes a bit back. See, it's not a very sharp raisin actually. On the back of that front third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of pruny note. There's a little bit of date and sultana in there as well. So yeah, prunes, dates and sultana. The back half of the front third of your palate is definitely more a kind of dried fruity character. Then as you move further forward, you get a wee bit of a more kind of oily figgy character, and then as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, there's definitely a wee bit more. Yeah, there is definitely a little bit more of a kind of how would we say? There's definitely more there's a bit of blackcurrant underneath and there's a bit of blackberry on top. Is there anything else? Nah, I think that covers it, yeah. You get fig in the middle of that front third of your palate, blackcurrant underneath, blackberry on top, and that sort of lingers into the aftertaste. So yeah, the way this beer goes together, I think, is very, very nice. I really like this one. As I say, it's one of these beers that's like really well done in a sense, but it doesn't do anything surprising, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've had beers like this over the years that have been very, very nice, and this one certainly fits into that particular category. But yeah, I think we should have a wee look at the mouthfeel just to round off this review, and that'll be that with this one. So yeah, this is my kind of Friday evening beer, so I'm going to go out and have something to eat after this, which I will probably need, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So, mouthfeel wise, for me, this beer is kind of bottom end of full bodied. The carbonation is very smooth. It's got a very silky mouthfeel to it, in fairness. And a lot of that I think is due to the presence of the oats, but also the kind of bourbon barrel aging. It's also going to give it that. But the malty side of things, you've got that lovely smooth woody character. You've got a bit of smoothness from the bourbon as well. The oats, as we said, are going to contribute to that, but you've got roastiness in there. You've got smoothness. You've also got a bit of toastiness and sweetness as well. The coffee beans, of course, are giving you a bit of bitterness, and the malty adjuncty side of things. It's a very, very well-rounded Imperial Stout, this one. Imperial Coffee Stout, with just basically a lovely kind of bourbon backbone to it. I think that's a good way to describe it. In terms of IBUs, pardon me, it's a little bit difficult to say what this beer would be in terms of IBU, because obviously the coffee and the malt are both contributing to this. So yeah, for me, this one will be, it's got to be at least like 60 IBUs, something like that. It does get a little bit more roasty and toasty the further into the aftertaste that you go, and that's all three things contributing to that. But we've described the malt base, the fruity side. This one's got a good little bit of dry fruity character to it, but it's also got a nice kind of rounded oily sort of thing. But yeah, the way this beer goes together, I think, is very, very nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This one was the Obsequious, a bourbon barrel aged Imperial Coffee Stout, 11.5% ABV from Gamma Brewing in Herlev, just outside of Copenhagen in Denmark. Really enjoyed this one. As I say, it's one of these Imperial Stouts that doesn't do anything surprising, but it's just really, really nicely done. So it gets a big, big thumbs up from me. So, yeah, I think we can leave it there for this one. And I'll try not to cough. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Gamma Brewing as well. And we will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the very near future. But this was a very special beer from them. And I think this was a really nice one to review around Christmas time, of course. So, yeah, let's leave it there. Check out my social media, check out theirs. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next review. Slàinte, skål, cheers.